Hey guys, it's Madison Estes. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am reviewing The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I didn't know a whole lot about this book going into it. All I knew is that I had seen it all over Instagram earlier this year, and I took a crime writing class at Pro Writing Aid, and the instructor recommended this book for its plot twists. So this story is about an actress, Casey Fletcher, who is recently widowed, and she had endured some really bad publicity recently, so she decides to hide out at her family's lake house for the summer. While there, she meets Catherine, who is a former model, and Catherine's husband, who is a tech innovator that recently developed a social media app. One day on the lake, Casey saves Catherine from drowning, and the two develop a close friendship. Then Casey begins spying a little bit, and she discovers that Catherine and Tom have a very volatile marriage, and then Catherine goes missing. So this starts off like a typical domestic thriller. You have the stereotypical bored housewife, although she's not really much of a housewife anymore. And, she does some snooping and she uncovers a crime. It's a pretty typical premise. Although it has all of the makings of a very stereotypical story, it starts to go in a very different direction in the middle of Act 2. And then it goes in a very different direction after that, and then we end up in a supernatural realm. Now, this genre shift isn't something that everyone can handle, especially because it was not foreshadowed very well. I was about over 250 pages into it when it started to go into like a horror direction, and I was like, that is not what I thought this book was. I was okay with it, probably because I grew up reading Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine, and they used to pull that all the time. I also watch a lot of movies, and movies tend to blend genres even more than books do. I think possibly because once you've invested reading 250 pages and you think you're reading one type of book and then suddenly you're reading something else, that can be a really frustrating experience for a reader. Whereas when you're watching a movie, you've only invested maybe an hour of your time before things start changing in an unpredictable way, and I think it's just easier to go with the flow. I really enjoyed the whodunit element. There's absolutely no way you could guess who did it. I don't think so anyways. But I did really enjoy it a lot. Three of the things that I really liked about this book are the characters, the narrator's sense of humor, and the writing style. Some of the characters are a little bit flat, like Eli, but I thought Tom was interesting. He's, just suspicious enough that you never fully drop your guard with him. And then you've got Boone, who's just, staying there for the summer, who's like this really hot guy, so you're instantly a little bit wary of him because you know that Casey is going to have a blind spot with him because he's hot. And then Boone brings his cop friend into the investigation, and her name is Wilma, and I trusted her a little bit more, but still I was always a little bit wary of her as well. She carries a scrunchie on her arm, which I thought was a very interesting character detail, because I do that as well. And to me, having a scrunchie on your arm is just, I have shit to do and I can't decide if my hair needs to be up or down, so I need a scrunchie on my arm so I have options. No, but really, it kind of gives me the impression of someone that's a little bit frazzled, but also someone that cares about their hair enough to wear scrunchies, because scrunchies are very good for your hair. They don't pull it like regular ponytail holders do. And then Casey's just funny. She's always cracking these really dark, morbid jokes. Although we do spend a lot of time listening to her mourn about her dead husband, and, the author probably could have cut about 25 pages of that and I would have been fine. And the writing style is very impressive. There's a lot of really great lines in this book, and one of my favorites is the opening line. "The lake is darker than a coffin with the lid shut." Before I get into spoilers, I want to talk about my main criticism with this book. Now, I enjoyed this book a lot. In fact, before one of the big twists was revealed that just didn't sit well with me, I was going to give this book 5 out of 5 stars because the way it is written is beautiful. There are so many parts that I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the journey there until we get to one of the plot twists that I don't think was executed well, and it felt kind of like a cheat to me. And although this book kind of straddles mystery and horror, whenever you're writing a mystery novel, it's important that you play fair with the reader, and I don't think that this book did that. So I'm about to get into spoilers. If you would like to read The House Across the Lake without having the ending spoiled, I would leave now. But before you do, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. So my biggest problem with this book is what is arguably the biggest plot twist of the novel, which is that Casey murdered her own husband because she found out that he was a serial killer. The issue that I have isn't that he was a serial killer. It isn't that Casey murdered him before the book even started. I don't have a problem with any of that. In fact, I actually think it's a really cool twist. My problem is with the way that it was executed. There are moments in this book that don't make any sense because of this twist. So on page 39, back whenever we thought that Casey's husband died in an accident and that she became an alcoholic because she's mourning him, not because she had to become a murderer, it has this passage. "He wasn't in bed when I woke up. nor was he anywhere in the house. Eli and I searched the place from top to bottom, calling out his name. There was no sign of him. He was gone. I'm sorry, but that line, "he wasn't in bed when I woke up," is so bullshit. I'm sorry, but that's not unreliable narrator. That is narrator lying to the reader's fucking face, because God forbid someone figure out the twist. Which I don't think anyone was going to figure out the twist. Everyone just kind of thought, or I just thought, that Lynn was just Casey's backstory, just a way to explain why she's an alcoholic who sits at home all day and happens to witness the crime. And, I thought it was like character building, things like that. Maybe I'm just not suspicious enough, but I genuinely don't think that there was such a need to oversell, the fact that she was devastated that he died, and to oversell how confused she was that morning, because she wasn't confused. That's the thing. There's nothing in here that suggests that she's delusional at any point or in denial. So it's just really frustrating that the author decided to write it this way. And that's not the only part too. There's another scene where she talks about how his hat is missing. Like, it's a single sentence all by itself. Very dramatically, his hat is missing. And that's supposed to signify to the reader, oh my God, his hat's missing. She's just now realizing that he's dead. And the hat is missing because she grabbed it and threw it in the lake to make it look like he went fishing and died. And it's like, who is she putting on the performance for? Because Eli didn't even know that he had a fishing hat. Like, he's not, paying attention or anything. And just the way it's written so dramatically, it doesn't feel like it's toying with the reader. It feels, again, like it's just flat out, like the narrator is just lying to the reader. And I hate that. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. There's also other parts, too, where the way she phrases things, like, have your husband die while on vacation. That's very different from murder your husband on vacation. And what makes me really sad is just that this was a really good plot twist. Like, honestly, if I looked at the outline for this book, I would think, wow, these twists are great. Everything looks like it's foreshadowed pretty well. It's just these lines that are sprinkled throughout that really just, drive me up the wall. There's a way to carefully write, about someone where you're, talking about the good memories and stuff, while not, just flat out saying things that are untrue or that in retrospect seem like really cheap tricks. Okay, so I'm done ranting. That was like my biggest problem I had with the book. Now, the other major plot twist I enjoyed, and I thought it was executed really well. If you can get past the fact that this story went from domestic thriller to horror story, like, really fast, I think that the other plot twist was really good. So Casey murdered Lynn by drugging him and throwing him into the lake where he drowned. And then the day that Casey saved Catherine from drowning, it turns out that Lynn's spirit had entered Catherine. Once I finally accepted the fact that Casey murdered Lynn and that, that whole part of her backstory was a lie, I was able to get on board with this second twist, and I really enjoyed it, and I pretty much enjoyed the rest of the novel at that point. I thought that the climax of the novel was really good. I really liked the way Casey handled that situation, and I think that the plot developments after that point were really good and unexpected. Well, mostly unexpected. I do have one other complaint, which is that the author attempts to do like a third plot twist at the very end that I just thought was unnecessary. So yeah, we find out that Tom actually was trying to poison Catherine, in addition to the fact that Catherine had been possessed that day. So it's kind of like a weird coincidence, which is fine. I was on board with that too. But I just thought that it was, so obvious, because the entire novel, Casey thinks that Tom is, trying to kill Catherine or already killed her. So to find out that he actually was trying to do that just felt like, so what? What I would have preferred, and what I think would have been a 5 out of 5 star ending, was that Eli, who was overall a pretty flat, boring character, he's never really a suspect, which made him a suspect in my mind. Although, again, like, he's not really a suspect. He's like the one person Casey never suspects. He doesn't have any deep, dark secrets that come out. He's really flat and boring and just kind of there. So I thought that it would have been really interesting if he and Lynn had been doing the murders together. And it would have made a lot of sense, too, for many reasons. The first one being that Eli lived at the lake full time. So every time Lynn came to the lake house in secret to murder someone, Eli would have been like, what's Lynn doing here again? And then I think, he could have pieced together that every time a girl goes missing in this relatively small town, it just happens to be whenever Lynn's visiting. Because, Lynn is going to have to pull up to the lake house in a car, and Eli's going to know that he's there. So I wouldn't say that's a plot hole, it's just like very convenient that Eli happens to be such an introvert hermit that he doesn't even notice that his out-of-town neighbor happens to stop by every time a girl in town goes missing. Another reason it would have been a really good twist is because after Casey tells Eli that Lynn has possessed Catherine's body, Eli believes it almost right away. Like, he goes in the room with Lynn/Catherine for like 15 minutes and he comes out and he's like, okay, I believe you, which was super suspicious to me. I was like, okay, in order to convince me that someone is possessing someone else's body, like, you would have to have so much really personal information. You know, you would have to know that person really, really well to be able to ask questions that would let you know that that person is, you know, being possessed by someone else. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy that it only took him 15 minutes. I thought that he already knew that Lynn had possessed Catherine, and that's why he had been trying to kill Catherine, because he didn't want his secret to get out. You know, like whenever Lynn died, he was like, you know, now no one knows that we committed those murders together. The secret will never get out. And then, you know, him finding out that Lynn possessed Catherine, you know, I thought that would have been a really good twist if we found out that it had been Eli that had been trying to kill Catherine this whole time instead of Tom. Yeah, so that just made me sad because it was such a missed opportunity. Whereas I thought that the author was building up to this really cool plot twist because, you know, like I said, Eli had been a pretty flat character up until that point. And it just turned out to be nothing. Like, he's just a boring guy that lives at the lake and is not a serial killer. I kind of wish the author had just left it with, you know, Lynn was possessing Catherine as like the last twist of the novel. I would have been okay with that. Like, you know, 2 really surprising twists in a novel is okay. Sometimes you don't have to have that, you know, last minute twist. So I don't have a whole lot of other criticisms other than that, and there's not really any other spoilers I want to get into. The ending was sufficient. And you know, I do like being surprised in a novel, and I was surprised. It feels like such a backwards compliment to be like, it's sufficient, but that's how I felt. Like, it's a very okay ending. I did enjoy this book enough that I checked out another book by this author at my library, although I did go on Reddit first and I was like, does this author have a habit of lying to the reader? Just to find out if this is something that the author did all the time. And, you know, one person told me, well, Survive the Night has a lot of unreliable narrator tropes in it, but there's not really another instance where he just flat out lies to the reader. So we'll see if that's true. So because I really enjoyed the characterization, I really liked the writing style, I thought there was a really good buildup of mystery and mostly a good payoff as well, I'm gonna give this story 3 out of 5 stars. That might seem really harsh considering I liked most of the elements of this book, but I really hate being lied to, so I'm knocking off 2 stars. It's 3 out of 5 stars. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe. On this channel, I post reviews, writing advice, horror commentary, and vlogs. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.